Welcome to the Complexio podcast. Complexio is building a cohesive AI platform that automatically gathers, maps, and analyzes data to provide a holistic view of a company's operations, enabling autonomous problem solving at scale across enterprises worldwide. In today's episode, you'll hear from Complexio's president, Lange, who has led AI and machine learning teams at some of the world's most influential companies such as Google, Uber, Unity, Microsoft, Amazon, and IBM. Danny shares his perspective on the future of enterprise AI, where it's headed, why businesses must go all in or risk being left behind, and how Complexio is driving the next shift in the industry. On to the episode. Hi, and welcome to the Complexio podcast, where today we have the president of Complexio, Danny Lange, with us. You have a pretty incredible track record within the AI space. You've been at Google, Unity, Uber, Amazon, Microsoft, IBM, and all of these incredible companies. You've been heading up the AI and also machine learning departments. So it seems like you've always kind of been ahead of the game where it comes to AI.
Yeah, I try to do my best, but I've always really liked the concept of computers being, for many years, smarter than they were actually. But we're getting there.
And you were also working on intelligent agents at IBM, which is back in the 90s. So very different to what they might look like today. But what drew you to that vision so early on, and what did it teach you about AI's potential?
Yeah, I had just finished my PhD and I was a computer scientist at IBM. So this is getting a little bit technical. But for decades at that time in the mid 90s, for decades, we have tried to make programming better. And it started, from programming computers at the hardware level, then evolved into better and better programming languages. There were structured languages. And then during the late 80s and early 90s, we got something we called object-oriented programming, which was, easier to use. And the next natural development from there, or the evolution from object-oriented programming, was basically agents, intelligent agents, because what's better than having blocks of programs that can run around and do things for you and work together? It was just a very, very natural step. So my claim to fame was a agent framework in Java, that was open source at that time, and it was an initial success.
No, and it must be very exciting for you to see the development now, and especially as you've gone on to shape AI at Microsoft and Amazon, all these incredible companies that we mentioned earlier. And each time you were kind of the guy to put AI into production at scale. What threads do you think tie all of these experiences together?
It was always a mission of getting machine learning. At that time, we didn't really call it AI. We called it machine learning mostly, but today we sort of merged the concepts a bit. But at that time, my slogan was always to bring machine learning into every corner of the company. It's not just, one department or one product or one workflow. No, it's every corner of the company. Machine learning needs to be sort of natively in the organization. And at Microsoft, I managed a tool that was, for 2,500 data scientists that they could use machine learning. At Amazon, it was running the machine learning team for all of Amazon and also launching a machine learning service on Amazon Web Services for the public, for developers in other companies, yeah. And at Uber, it was same. Uber Eats launched with 5 different machine learning models in the app at beta launch, which was unheard of. At that time, you would just hack something together. But yeah, they hacked it together, but they used machine learning. And I think that at Unity, it had the broadest impact, because we basically went from 200 million monthly active users to over 4 billion users playing a game on the Unity platform. And that wouldn't happen if you did not deploy machine learning to every corner of the company.
And so for someone who is not a data scientist who's listening to this and they understand the value of machine learning, but maybe don't fully yet understand why do you need machine learning at every corner of the company, can you in simple terms maybe explain to that person?
Yeah. The magic of machine learning is that it's the machine who learns. It means that, and now I know some data scientists are going to get mad at me, but it means that you have to be less of a data scientist to have success. As a data scientist, you're a strong, highly educated human, and you will try to understand and explain and describe and implement everything about some kind of topic. Yeah. When you use machine learning, you just feed it in vast amounts of data, and it figures something out that allows you to make predictions about the future. And you do not have to know how it gets there. You just notice that it works. And that's sort of a first step of giving up some of the insights that we human like to have and let the systems take over.
Yeah, so you kind of get into that the machine thinks on the same level as you do, if I understand you correctly. And I guess that feeds into, I've heard you speaking about the long tail problems. And I guess first off, maybe what is a long tail problem?
Yeah, a long tail problem is what companies who wants to go global, they have to deal with. The head problem is always easy. We as humans can comprehend it. We are going to talk to the 5 most important or most biggest customers and we'll solve their problem. Yeah. But if you have 100,000 customers or you have 1 million users, you can't sort of handcraft each user's experience. At the same time, when you, for instance, go shopping at Amazon.com, what you see out of the many, many millions of users, what do they have? Over 300 million users, yeah? What you see is curated just for you using machine learning, yeah? When you order an Uber, well, you get the Uber that can get you to you the fastest. That's also machine learning. All these very highly scalable problems that sort of on the surface looks like really difficult. Machine learning is really, really good at solving those. And that is this long tail. There's a vast business in being able to deal with a long tail.
You already touched on it, but what might, in different industries, what could a long tail issue sort of be? If we take in insurance or in any industry that appeals to you, what comes to mind?
Yeah, long tail is when you fully acknowledge that every single customer you have has a unique set of problems that you need to solve as it was the only customer in the world. I mean, like, this is ideal. This is what every company should ideally think. Yeah, every single customer, they matter to me, and they're gonna feel, because I use this technology, they're gonna feel that I know them, that I treat them well, and I do exactly what they need.
I think we're also used to it now we have our phones that are completely adapted to us, and maybe before we were more maybe accepting of being put into a box, but you definitely do see in all of the companies now, when you are working with your computer, you're with whatever program, you want it to respond to you the way that you would like to work as such. So I think that's a really exciting thing to be able to solve and to look at. But why are people not really looking at it?
I mean, like, it's still deep in, I think it's a part of human nature. We actually want to control. We want to prescribe what our customers need. We like to be in control. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we are facing now, that we sort of move into an area of machine learning and AI being deployed everywhere, that it takes some of that control away. And it changes, in many ways, it changes our role from line by line telling the system how to treat the customer to giving an AI instructions about how to solve problems for a customer, but let the AI do it. We are moving sort of from doing to a role of oversight.
Mm. And I guess that kind of ties into my next questions, which is, we see all of these becomes, everyone wants to invest in AI and everyone wants to have the next solution for enterprises especially, but it's very seldom that they actually get a return on their investments in this area. And I guess that alludes to a little bit what you were saying, that we think we know what people want, but actually allowing the AI to do it for you. Or why would you say the ROI so far has been so elusive for companies?
Yeah, I don't think that the executive teams, the CEOs, the C level, I don't think they think strategically about this. I think, and I'm trying not to get in trouble here with people, but I think that they look reactively at this. They are like, oh, other people are using AI. We need to do that too, but we need to not get too deep in. So let's run a pilot project. And that's sort of, putting a toe in the water, but it's not really making an impact. And then they conclude that it doesn't really work for us. We didn't get anything out of it. But I think the root cause is that you have to look at this strategically. Yeah? If you look at companies, and I like to mention, Amazon, Uber, Google, I can mention Facebook. TikTok is another one. These companies are strategically, from the founding, committed to use this technology to provide super personalized experiences for all their users. Yeah? And most enterprises are still sort of in that transition. It's like, they don't feel they have to necessarily do that, but then maybe they have to try a little, but you need to get deeper in. You can't just run one pilot and expect to see some payback from that.
So they're kind of thinking of AI maybe more as a plaster on top of the problems rather than, as you said, really going deep into it and thinking it at a founding level.
I think you described that pretty accurately.
Hopefully neither of us get in problems. I was saying that, but so the current approach to AI in an enterprise, or if we were to take this kind of AI plaster approach, it's still very manual. It's a lot of prompting. It's the tools are very siloed between them, which makes it hard to then scale it within a company. And why is that?
I think it's, if you look at some of the most popular frameworks right now, they're actually geared towards developers. So it's really AI software for software developers, yeah? And they use the AI to make well-known, established processes maybe work a little better. They really attack the problems that they can see. And they're missing a lot of the opportunity around. I like sort of the old story about someone dropping their keys on a very, very dark street, and they search all night under the street light, and they can't find the keys, because they're out in the darkness there. Sometimes I look at what enterprises are doing in that same sense. They take a well-known process, typically in the IT department, and that's what they work on. Yeah, they don't discover the real opportunities in the organization that way.
So it's very much, again, if we say go back to the C-suite that says, okay, let's try AI, we do a pilot program, and they give it to the IT departments, but then don't really look at what's happening in the rest, and then they assume that, or they want the IT department to create the solution for the problems that are happening in the rest of the departments without actually having a communication or true communication between the different departments.
Yeah, I believe that's typically the case. And often the only KPI they look at is the IT team now going to have a smaller budget next year? And of course they're not going to have a smaller budget, not because now they also have to have an AI budget. Yeah. And then companies look at that, leadership looks at that and say, there's something wrong here. But I think they sort of got themselves into a bad spot this way. Yeah.
And what would you say is a better KPI?
I think it's very important to identify when anywhere you're going to introduce AI, you have to identify what exactly you want to achieve with it. And just lower headcount, it's, we can talk about that later. That's not the real deal. The real deal is, are we going to deliver a better service? Are we going to deliver service in half the time? If someone has a disruption of service, are we going to bring them back up in half the time or a quarter of the time? What is it? Yeah. Are we going to lower the cost of bringing a new customer on board? If you look at those KPIs and you measure those KPIs, as is it before and after you deploy AI, then you get a very clear picture. But in many, many cases, it's not, when I talk to companies, it's like, we want to make customer support better, but they never tell me what better means.
Yeah. So having a clear definition of that is really the starting block, which I guess then is also important to understand your company, understand the context of everything that everyone inside of the company is doing, and how, as you said, what is actually better, because you need to understand then what you do today and what could it look like tomorrow. And we don't, when you interact with, if we take, I know it's not 100% correct, but most people turn to ChatGPT or so on, an LLM tool, and they think, okay, this is going to solve all of our issues. And if you put your ChatGPT into your computer, you still need to tell it what you're trying to work on. You still need to say, and you kind of have to go through and say, this is how I normally work on it. And it won't be able to help you unless you give it context, which also is how we as humans work. If someone sends me a message and that doesn't make sense and I have no understanding of the background of it, I won't be able to work. That seems to be the sort of missing ingredients, as far as I can understand, of why also there's all of these program or these pilots aren't scaling the way we would like. So why is context so critical? But there's also the kind of second part to that is, to give AI context, they need to have access to a lot of very company secrets, or even just the way that the company runs, which you don't want to share with a more open source model. So that's a hard one for the industry to solve as well.
Yeah. So it's absolutely right what you're saying. We can all access ChatGPT or Gemini from Google. They are actually extremely powerful. We all tried it, yeah. They can do amazing things for us. But we have all access to the same ChatGPT. We have all access to the same Gemini, yeah. It's like the one you access can give you the same insights as the one I access, yeah. There's nothing special about it. So if you can ask some really clever prompt and get some magic out of it, you know what? I can probably, or someone else out there, someone else will be able to ask an even smarter prompt than yours and get even better results out, yeah. So there's really nothing to differentiate, yeah. ChatGPT and Gemini are super smart employees who knows nothing about our businesses. Now to your context part, yeah, because it's only with the context. If you take the context and put that context into use along with a capable system like ChatGPT or Gemini, then you can get valuable insights out. And if that context is yours, it's proprietary, it's for your company, it's your private context, it's your knowledge, yeah, then it can reason over that, and it can give you actual magic responses that you can use in your business that nobody else can do. It is back to the good old data. So if everybody now have an AI system that can reason for them, if you have unique data that the AI can work on, that puts you in a unique position, yeah. So it's back to the data.
Yeah. And I guess it's important. How important do you think it is that you have perfect data within an enterprise? Because you probably don't. There's a lot of things going on. So what does perfect data look like? What does structured, unstructured, all of these?
Yeah. So historically, we have always believed in garbage in leads to garbage out, because that's what we, and includes myself as data scientist, we thought about, if it's a lot of noise coming in, then your algorithm is not going to work and you're going to get noise out. So for a long time, we have done a lot of work in cleaning up data, putting data into nice tables and into rows and columns. And that has driven the business for many, many years. It's a whole first wave of AI was predictive AI. That's the stuff I worked on at Amazon, for instance. Yeah, it was all very nice data. However, large language models, the latest developments since late 2022, has been that we can use large language models, we can use deep learning, we can use these recent technologies to actually learn what matters and what does not matter. So even if you put a lot of noisy data in, it will capture and learn from the signal in there, even though we as humans can't see it. So that has changed the game. So now data doesn't need to be perfect any longer. Data doesn't need to be numerical and in rows and columns. Data can be PDF documents. Data can be transcriptions of phone conversations. Data can be manuals. Data can be just about anything inside your company. And you feed that into ChatGPT or Gemini, you will start getting results out of that. And that's completely changing the game, because now you can feed it all this information, you can feed it a product description, yeah, and then you can start providing customer support directly from a product description. Yeah, it's new times.
I know, it's super exciting. It's fascinating to watch just how quickly everything is, well, feels like quickly for the user. I presume behind the scenes there's a lot of work still going on, but it is truly, I almost want to say magical when you experience it, of how well something can work when everything comes together. But it is very rare that it actually does come together as such. So, what do you think that companies and enterprises need from AI that they're not getting at this moment?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of implementation of AI. So by implementation, I mean you install something, you build something, you just get AI running. And I think that's the wrong focus. I think what you need to do is you need to look at AI to make better understanding of your business, your documents, your customers, your processes, really getting into all the stuff that I think we sometimes call organizational knowledge. Organizational knowledge is this: you have a whole group of people and they somehow know how to do things. No single individual actually know how to do it, but it happens, yeah? That's organizational knowledge. I think it's important to get in there and use AI to actually extract that knowledge.
Hmm. No, and yeah, the way that I like how you describe that. That I think that's where we haven't really got it. Where it's humans have this knowledge that is, as you said, it's organizational knowledge. It's a couple of different individuals that come together, and they might not. It might not be something that they describe. If you ask them what do they do, it might not be what they originally think of. But if they go through their day and really look at, and that's what their computer sees, is exactly the data that they input every day. But if they speak about it, they would miss those details. And it gives context to the business. It gives an understanding, which is so valuable. I think that is where Complexio comes into the true essence of how we can use AI, because it has this cohesive platform that you automatically gather, map, and structure and analyze various sources of data, and you get this holistic view of your company's operation. And from everything that you've said leading up to this, I can sort of start to piece together why you might have said yes to coming on board and start working with Complexio. But you've been at the forefront of all of these amazing big tech companies. So what did make you say yes to Complexio, and what is it that impresses you about it?
Yeah, that's a good question. First of all, a good friend of mine convinced me to sort of spend half an hour, get a demo of where where Complexio had been doing, and the very first thing they showed me was this super complex spider web of a graph that would map out captured activities in a company. So people sending emails to each other, sharing documents, and all the systems they use. And it was complete spider web. And they said proudly there are millions in there of these these dots and notes in this graph. And way back, many years ago, when I was at IBM, one of the things I worked on was to visualize programs. And I had the same kind of graphs showing how programs they operate inside the computer, and you looked at these graphs and then you could sort of optimize your programs. Yeah, so I saw this graph and I'm like, I actually never thought about mapping the entire organization and its knowledge that way. Yeah, and why? Well, because we haven't been able to do it so far. It's only with the most recent AI that you're able to make sense of all the emails being sent between people, the meetings being held with, transcription, messaging between people, yeah, notes being shared, documents being updated, and systems being used. That if you look at all that, and you have an AI that's able to interpret it and make sense of it, so that it's more than just words, yeah, but it's actually meaningful actions and goals, then you you can build this graph. And that was what hit me when I saw it. I was like, that's interesting, because if I have that graph created by AI and I can reason over that graph, now I can start understanding how an organization works. And if I understand how an organization works, I can start automating some of that trivial, busy work that is actually happening most of the time.
Yeah. So this is kind of the context that we were speaking about earlier being sort of the missing piece. This sounds very much like what impressed you early was that availability of context so early on, and no single individual or a group of individuals would ever be able to go in and look at a company, what they do, and get that like minute detail of what's going on each day over however many years that the company has been running. So with this, how does Complexio solve that? You spoke about the graph, which they refer to as their event knowledge graph. But what is it that really, how does that help solve everything?
Yeah, that graph allows you to identify workflows. The way that people work, someone gets a task, they do a part of the task, they hand it off to someone else. Something is not the way it should be, it goes back. There's all these exceptions. We capture those as well. Yeah. So what you do is you get this complete graph of all activities and the knowledge flowing in the organization. And then you start sort of boiling it down a bit to like, what are the processes in there that we can pull out and look at automation? So if there's a lot of manual work going on between two or more employees, is there somehow we can optimize that? Is there somehow we can automate that so that we produce less exceptions, less errors, so that it goes faster, and so that we'd actually free people up from doing a lot of trivial work. I'm going to say this word is mind-blowing, how much work is typing data in from one tool into another tool, copying data manually. You look at that and say, wow, that's AI could do that for me. Yeah. But finding that place in the organization where you have these inefficiencies, that's what Complexio can do. We can also figuring out how long time stuff takes. What is the distribution? If you do something 1,000 times, yeah, sometimes it goes fast, sometimes it goes really slow. What is the median? What is it that causes it to go slow? Is that because you're waiting on someone else to do something, etc.? All those insights are impossible to capture if you go and talk to people, because as you just said a moment ago, people actually won't tell you everything. It's not they don't want, but they don't think of it, yeah? But when we see emails and someone sends an email saying, well, it's the second time I asked for this document, can you get it back to me? Small things like that tell us, oh, there's some kind of inefficiency here. There's something that could work better. So that allows us to look at this very complex graph, distill it down to something that allows us to rank these different workflows and say, here's one that's so obvious that we can improve on, yeah, and use AI for that.
We've touched on the graph and we keep mentioning, I think it's important to, again, in layman's term, because if you are not a computer scientist or understand of this, AI, you think again of LLMs, but it is so much more. And Complexio has the event knowledge graph, which is the living map of the enterprise, but it also has 3 more parts to its sort of stack, the technology stack. So you have the multi-model AI, and then you have the automated automations, which you referred to a little bit earlier, and the orchestration layer where you execute the workflows across systems and tools. But could you go through why this architecture is such a breakthrough or the mind-blowing experience, as you refer to, compared to other platforms?
Yeah, I would sort of run the risk, and I know this is a little oversimplified, but I would say, every other startup I look at, 50% of all startups out there are focused on agentic AI. So it's about agents and AI, but they are all focused on the implementation of it. So this stack, implementation is a part of this stack, yeah. But the foundation of the stack is to use AI to understand what needs to be automated. So if you're out raising money for a startup today and it's an AI startup and it's definitely going to have something about agents in there, you're going to go out and say something like this to the investors, which is, if I have, a group of intelligent agents, they're going to do all this stuff together and it's going to become utopia because they're going to work so nicely together and solve all these problems all by themselves. Yeah, it sounds really good. Yeah, but it also reminds me about, and I don't know if you ever read the book Lord of the Flies. Yeah. So you let all these agents loose on an island, and it's not utopia because they start killing each other instead. Yeah. It's the orchestration, it's the understanding of the proper workflows. That is not something these agents just randomly figure out. Yeah, that's why the stack that Complexio offers, that stack sort of builds on the knowledge about the organization and ends with the execution of these workflows where you use agents. But you have to make sure they do the right job, and that's where our focus is.
So I believe it's Sean Edmiston, the chief scientist here at Complexio. I think he once referred to LLMs as sort of very, very clever but freshly graduated PhD students. So they're very smart, but they don't really know how maybe the real world works and so on. And they will be great, but they might not understand the deeper, complex ways of working that a certain enterprise works. So when they first come into a company, let's say, it takes them a little while to get up to speed. Would it be fair to sort of say that Complexio is like the old wise person who has been in the company for a long time that can kind of then tell these different tools, the different LLMs, who are smart but maybe don't really understand how to do it more efficiently, that it's sort of the old wise platform that orchestrates them throughout their day?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. That is sort of the freshly graduated PhD graduate is that agent without context. Yeah, that's why it takes a year or two, and they become highly productive in an organization. Yeah, it is the same here. We are trying to basically bootstrap these agents, so that they have the basic knowledge to go in and actually automate part of the workflow. And then, of course, when they do that, you start wondering, maybe they produce exceptions. Maybe you go in and look at that and say, maybe they can be smarter at what they're doing. Maybe you can improve over here. So over time, they can become even better. In some cases, by themselves, by observing, how the process flows. Yeah, but just letting a bunch of freshly graduated agents into an organization, it's probably going to be more Lord of the Flies than anything else.
Yes, and we would like to avoid that.
And we would like to avoid that, yes.
So then talk about the C-level that kind of puts in an AI pilot as a reaction to reassure them. So the Complexio is the AI that makes the other AI valuable and makes it less reactionary because you actually gain that understanding through the event knowledge graph, which is pretty much the living blueprint of the enterprise. We didn't mention it too much, but you did speak about it. But the automated automations, which is something very exciting that Complexio does. What is your thoughts about it? And how is this a change from the standard process automation or LLM tools?
Yeah, so here's a really cool thing about AI that we still have to sort of get used to, which is that AI can code. So if I identify a very important workflow and identify, the steps in it, the actors, the roles as part of this, my AI can also write the code that implements that workflow. I don't have to do it manually. Yeah, it can actually write the code. It can write the code that interacts with non-AI systems. It can be a financial system. It can be some point of sale system. Interact with those. It can interact with AI products. That's the statement, Complexio offers the AI that can help the other AI do its job better. Yeah. So that whole code generation, that whole composition of workflows with other tools and with other AIs is crucial here, because every client that we work with have their own tools. Some of them are custom. Some of them are, domain specific. Some of them are very common and you see them a lot, but you have to be able to deal with it all. And automation is very important there, that you can actually ask the system to write the code that integrates some of these things to work with each other, and you don't have to do it manually.
Mm. And if you've ever tried, I have never fully tried to code anything big, but if I had it described to me once that if you think about, for example, if you want to make your breakfast in the morning, if a layman person speaks about it, it's like, I got up, I put the pan on the stove, I cracked some eggs, and this, if you actually code that, it's so much more the details. It's like, took the steps to the stove, I opened the fridge door, I'm probably missing steps already here, got the eggs out, I did put this there. There's so much more to it, and that is missed. So if you're then looking at coding lots and lots of workflows within the company, I don't think you would ever be able to really finish and truly do it in an optimized way.
I love the breakfast example, yeah. You have to write all this code for exceptions too. So you open the fridge and there are no eggs. Now that's a whole different thing, yeah. Now you're just not writing the code for going and making breakfast. Now you have to go drive and go to the supermarket to pick, etc., etc. Yeah. So, and that is actually real life for software developers. It always, explodes. It always becomes more and more and more complex, yeah. And that is right now one of the big use cases of these AI tools for developers, because they can start sort of get help filling out a lot of the blanks. Yeah, and we're using that capability at Complexio to help build the automation.
And then that automation and the tools, what's great is also Complexio will recommend the tool or model that is best for that task. So you're not locked into one single model, for example. It will be, for one workflow, you have this model is recommended, and for another workflow, model Y is recommended.
Yeah, I think it's very important to be flexible. There are a lot of different AI tools offered out there, that lots of different models. Some are expensive to run, some are cheaper to run. You don't want to run, you don't want to do an overkill. You don't want to run something that costs you a lot of money if you can do it for less. Yeah. So there's a lot of nuances. Many of those nuances, the industry is just about to learn them the hard way. I think it's very important to use AI. Take our own medicine and make sure that if the AI is good at identifying workflows that I need to automate, that it also helps me automate them efficiently, writing the code, and it also helps me pick the right tools so that I get the right solution to the right problem.
Yeah. And why is it then that this automation at a scale, not just in a short workflow, but a scale across different departments and not just keeping it isolated, why is that such a critical shift?
We already talked about the long tail. And no business has what I call a golden $1 billion workflow. Yeah, it's many workflows. Yeah, and just like Amazon have millions of very personal and individual users with very specific profiles. Yeah, so are corporations. They consist of many workflows that are all dealing with all kinds of exceptions and special cases and what do I know. Yeah, and I cannot, as a human, I know some consultancies, they believe they can walk in, interview people and map it all out. Yeah, in reality there's a very long tail of stuff happening in a company, in an organization, that you don't just deal with the head of it, because there's barely a head. Yeah, it's a super long tail of stuff that needs to get done on a regular basis, and you need to automate a lot of it. Yeah. If you automate 5% of it, yeah, that's 5% of it. That's probably not going to be enough of a change. Yeah. So that kind of long tail looking at corporations, I think it's very important for Complexio to really address that.
And they're already addressing it in shipping it in different industries. But how do you see Complexio playing out in new industries?
I think that I love the shipping industry because it's sort of there's a lot of it's an important business, but it's also a very manual business. It involves a lot of people, involves a lot of government restriction, a lot of practical things. Yeah, to get a vessel out of port, you need to have a lot of documents. You have customs. You have safety mechanisms. It's endless. Yeah, I can't even. I don't know where to. I don't know all the words. Yeah, so shipping is what I call kind of low hanging fruit because it's so manual. Yeah, it doesn't have to be manual. But it has been until now because we have not had the technology to step in there. Yeah. Then you look around and you say, well, which other businesses are communication heavy? So I look at insurance. Yeah. If you ever had used insurance, you have to talk to someone. You have to write, and I was driving here, and then this happened, and I don't think I'm at fault. And here's the police report, and etc. 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 Yeah. Well, that is a prime candidate for this kind of automation. Yeah, the energy sector, anything that has to do with trading, where people are trying to figure something out, that kind of communication heavy industry. Those are examples. Yeah, and I think that it's important to sort of just realize that actually most businesses are not like Amazon. Most businesses are very manual, and Amazon and Google and a few of these very successful tech businesses, TikTok, Facebook, you name it, they're very ordered in their data. It's very structured. Yeah, you click or you don't click. Yeah, you share, you don't share, you like, you don't like. That's easy. Yeah, this new wave of AI is really dealing with you uploading a photo of the police report explaining what happened. Yeah, that can now be read by a computer and understood and interpreted and processed, where someone had to read it before, yeah, and do that work.
Yeah. So, and I mean, at the essence of us being humans, communication is very much part of that. So, like you said, most industries you will have very heavy communication. It's not a yes or no question. It is very much where this event knowledge graph comes in, where you kind of you can't put it in an Excel sheet and say any of these. It's much more, yeah. If you see a graph, the event knowledge graph, you see there's all of these circles and how they're linked to each other, and this, which is really, I think it's a bit more how we also think and operate as humans, which makes it a lot easier to interact with the system. You have been in the AI, you have for so long, you have seen the kind of every single shift that has come. You've been ahead of the wave as such. Do you believe that Complexio's approach is the beginning of another shift that we see?
Yeah, I'm known for doing the Sputnik comparison with ChatGPT. So sort of before Sputnik, there was 20, 30 years of what we call predictive AI. This is the stuff that runs Amazon, yeah. Search engines, Amazon, Ubers run that way, yeah. It's sort of the classic machine learning, use it to make predictions, yeah. Then suddenly out of the blue, in a sense out of the blue, of course, there was a lot of work going into it. But on November 30th, 2022, ChatGPT was released. And it worked better than anyone ever thought it would. We were all surprised, including the folks over at OpenAI. It did work better than anyone thought. I remember having a meeting shortly after with a professor from Stanford, his professor in AI, old guy, 70 something, looking at me saying, if you didn't get goosebumps, you're not human. Yeah, he got goosebumps. Yeah, and I admit I got it too. Yeah, that's the Sputnik moment. Yeah, but it's not the moon landing yet. It's like, wow, I can get ChatGPT, a little later Gemini and Claude from Anthropic. Yeah, three very, very impressive tools that I can get them to write emails for me. I can get them to write a document if I give it some instructions. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Yeah, that is the Sputnik moment. Yeah. We brought a satellite up, running around, cruising around Earth. Everybody got excited. But the moon landing is sort of the third wave. We need to turn all these rockets we have into something that's really going to make a change. Yeah. And I do think that going in and automating workflows that have been a human domain forever, yeah, and start automating them is what we actually want these systems to do. Yeah, we want these systems to create a better functioning world where humans do what humans are actually good at, dealing with other humans, and not sitting and copying spreadsheets into other spreadsheets. Yeah. And I think that's, to me, is the moon landing. If you want a more shorter term for it, I do think it's agentic AI that actually works, and I think that Complexio is on it. I think that is Complexio is aiming for that moon landing.
And that's very, very exciting. How do you see in the next 3 to 5 years, what will we achieve the moon landing, and what excites you about the role that Complexio can play in shaping enterprise AI?
I do think we're going to see the moon landing. I do think that we're going to see dramatic change. I also think that we're going to run into a lot of people who are already doing that, across the world, that, are a little sort of impatient and say, well, you promised this and it's not happening. Well, it is, but it takes time. I think in 3 to 5 years, I think that at Complexio, we would be, 100 or 1,000 times better at understanding the workflows in businesses, in automating those workflows, and then improve those automations, because it's not going to stop by just automating. It's actually going to be optimizing them. It's always been about optimization, yeah, and make entire industries run better. And that is my hope. That's my vision for this. Whether it's shipping, insurance, pharmaceuticals, you name it. If we can run all these process-heavy industries run lean and much more efficient, I think that would be good for everybody.
Yeah, and I think it's very true what you said earlier about getting humans back to what humans do best, which is not copy paste between systems, and which probably gets a lot of employees disillusioned with their day when they have to spend most of the time doing that rather than the thing that is human, which is interaction, creativity, in whatever way that looks like. I guess that kind of then is what this, again, going back to the C-suite that is looking at these AI tools and wanting to create these pilots. And that's what they're hoping for, but they're not getting it, and then they cut it off. But what sort of mindset shift would you advise to executives and boards that want to make this move from having endless pilots going on within their company into embedding AI into the deep fabric of their business?
I think you need to get all in. You can't wait. Don't assume this is going to go away. Don't assume that AI is just going to fail. Assume that this is going to have a major impact, and the sooner you get in and the deeper you get in, the better. Will there be mistakes made? Absolutely. That's only natural. There's a lot of learning that has to take place in organizations, in IT teams, and at the executive level, and understanding how to deploy AI strategically, actually really change the way that business is done. And I think that the C-suite that doesn't get in, the C-suite that sits on the sideline, they will very quickly get in trouble, because their businesses will not run as efficiently as their competition around them. And then it's probably too late at that time. We see an acceleration in everything. You talked about it. AI is evolving so fast. That has been my experience at least over the last 15 years. Everything happened sooner than I predicted, and I've always been very optimistic. And then, wow, this works better than I thought it would, constantly over the years. Yeah. So I don't expect that to slow down.
No, doesn't sound like it. So it sounds like it's a company-wide effort to get AI in and working throughout the company and throughout the enterprise.
Absolutely. I think I personally don't think there's room for the naysayers. I hear you read it on LinkedIn, you read it on the web. Some people saying, "Oh, this is never going to happen." Yeah, they said that about online commerce as well. Yeah, but look around. Yeah.
Amazing. And just the final, you've already touched on it, but what advice would you give leaders who want to sort of unlock this enterprise-wide impact from AI?
Come and talk to Complexio.
Amazing. I think on that note, thank you so much, Danny, for being here. Thank you for your insights. It's been truly eye-opening and mind-blowing and educational. So thank you very much for your time today.
And thank you for having me. It has been a pleasure.